All right, welcome back to FreightWaves Now here on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. That was episode 2 of Economy Lately right here with our lead economist, Anthony Smith. We get another one of those coming soon?
We have another one coming soon in the works right now. As I said in the video, the best production crew in the game, so they're hard at work putting that all together.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got a live interview here. We have Chris Wang, who is the co-founder and CEO of Taimen Transport. We are going to have to get a story on this Taimen Transport, by the way. We'll get that here in a moment. But I do want to thank you for joining us. How are you doing this morning?
Thanks for having me. Doing great.
Did you have a decent Memorial Day weekend?
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
nice
good to
be
hear.
back out in the world.
Yeah, I agree. It was nice to see we saw people out on the boat, saw people just out at the grocery store. It seemed that people are breathing, people are getting back to normal, and it's a good thing. So what's going on in your world? You guys do a lot of services. You guys have an asset-based service. You guys also have a brokerage. How's things going?
Going really well. It's a fun time to be in freight. You know, volumes have really picked back up drastically. We saw last year, towards the end of the year, drive-in rates really climb, which was nice to see, especially after 2019 when you guys were publishing articles talking about the freight apocalypse. So that was very much appreciated, I know, all around the trucking industry. And now we've really seen that people are building so many homes, flatbed rates start to climb as well. So it's a good time to be in trucking.
I was going to ask that. Are you guys more heavy into consumer side things? Are you pretty spread out? What is your?
We have a pretty solid mix. So we founded the freight brokerage in 2012 and then added the asset company in 2017. And through the asset company, we predominantly do dry van, also some flatbed. Through the freight brokerage, we offer a variety of different services and technologies depending on what you need as a shipper. So everything from drive-in and flatbed to international air shipments.
So, Chris, it's been one of the things that we've been talking about, at least I've been talking about, is employment, and within trucking logistics, it's been ramping up. How are you guys really kind of leading that charge within your company on making sure that you have enough and really going about recruiting?
Yeah. I think, business is definitely about people. And the most important thing that a business can have is a strong culture. And it actually brings to mind a documentary I saw. Have you guys ever seen Hero Dreams of Sushi on Amazon? Okay. So Hiro is a sushi chef, or was a sushi chef in Japan. And he had this sushi restaurant with just 10 bar stools. And it is the first, and I believe still only, sushi restaurant to earn 3 Michelin stars. So pretty, high award there and recognition. And so naturally, a lot of sushi chefs in Japan wanted to work for Hiro. And Hiro's deal was he would train you for free, but you had to spend years just perfecting the rice before you went on to touching the fish. And so at Taimen, we've got a group of people that are like that are that dedicated to our mission, which is to be the best at what we do and to create an environment where people can enjoy coming to work every day. That they would be willing to make the rice for several years in the pursuit of, greatness.
So definitely just building out that solid foundation and finding, like you said, that culture and having that drive. Real quick on Taimen, can you give us a quick background on that story of the name?
The name and the logo? Yeah, so when we founded Taimen in 2012, it was myself and 2 co-founders, and we had our mission. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew how we were going to do it. We knew who we wanted to be. But the last thing we thought of was what we were going to call it. So we went through probably a couple of dozen names before we arrived at Taimen, and one of my co-founders was an avid fly fisherman and had just come back from Mongolia. And so we were running through all these names, and he said, "What about Taimen?" And my other partner and I said, "What is a Taimen?" And he said, "They're these voracious pack hunters in Mongolia with teeth. They're these huge trout with teeth." And Taimen in the local dialect in Mongolian, or whatever is spoken at this river he was at, translates directly into river wolf. And we happen to be here in Chattanooga on a river, so the name stuck.
Yeah, it works so well too, right? Hunting as a pack, you obviously want to be collaborative in these environments, but it is, these businesses are very competitive. It's a very tight market. You have to be aggressive
100%.
In many ways. So over the past, throughout COVID, have you guys seen, did you see your customers grow on the consumer side the same way most things? Do you guys kind of shift over to get more consumer CPG goods during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of COVID, we actually, with the expedited shipments we do, we're privileged enough to get to ship a truckload of COVID vaccines at the end of last year, which is one of the coolest things we got to ship. That was pretty exciting. But yes, we definitely saw the direct-to-consumer markets that we're involved in pick up a lot with COVID, and then some of the other markets, really the flatbed markets that we're in, your steel, your oil and gas customers, automotive was definitely down last year, but we've seen those pick back up too.
So speaking of that pickup, we were mentioning just not too long ago, construction being one of those areas that are really kind of ramping up. Any other areas that you're seeing or anticipating to have a trend that's going to be long lasting going into maybe the mid part of 2021 or the latter half of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of those flatbed markets were down for so long that they're really going to maintain, especially with how much construction is going on and the volumes we're seeing from steel and oil and gas and just everywhere. And then COVID really changed the direct-to-consumer market and has really increased the volume of dry van loads that we've seen, especially starting August probably of last year. Our fleet, for instance, at Taimen Trucklines has tripled since August.
Wow.
So that's been pretty exciting. But I think you're also going to see a lot more international air freight, which is something we do. When you look at the port congestion, you see that transit times from Hong Kong to LA have gone from 31 days to 73 days. People can't really afford to wait 73 days in many instances. And I think we might even see a holiday retail surge Q3 instead of Q4 because of those lead times.
Lots to unpack there. I agree with you on the air cargo side. If you watched Peloton back at the end of last year, they were having massive problems getting their products into the U.S. They started using air freight to try to alleviate some of those capacity because companies in their situation, they had one opportunity, right? Gyms, we know that gyms are going to open up here in the back half of the year. They've got to lock in customers right now and do that. But I did want to go back to your flatbed question and your flatbed comment about being exposed to lumber and being exposed to steel. Are you at all afraid of inflationary pressures popping up around here? I mean, something that we're talking about now, but it seems to be mixed pockets. Some people are saying these have some staying power. Some people are saying that these are fleeting. Are you guys worried at all about inflationary pressures?
We see the largest volumes, at least with our customers and in terms of industries that we ship for in the steel market in particular, particularly oil and gas related. And that industry is so far behind in terms of supply and demand. And orders are coming up that are 90 days out, 6 months out. So I would expect to see volumes somewhat maintain, rates somewhat maintain into 2021.
That's another big point. I mean, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier with the pull forward into Q3 for holiday season or retail spending. And this seems like another area where things are going to get pulled forward. It sounds like that anticipation of a backlog is really kind of moving certain areas a little bit closer on.
Right. Yeah, there's just so much lag time right now still.
Yeah, so let's dive into that Q3 retail kind of bump here. What are you expecting, just kind of this back to school bump being bigger than normal this year, or what's kind of driving your belief there?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about international air freight, but as you kind of alluded to, not everybody can afford international air freight depending on what their product is. So I was talking to a business owner in China recently who sells pet supplies. He supplies Chewy. And he was telling me that, hey, if this has to go air, we kind of can't ship it because we're going to be losing money on every shipment. So, now that everybody has become so aware and it's such a top of mind topic about the delay at the ports, if you're Chewy or you're Amazon or you're some of those major retailers and you're importing a lot of product, I think you're going to have to order it so much earlier that then when all of that hits, you're going to see a spike sooner than we have past years.
Yeah, we're certainly not seeing any slowdown on the import sides. When I speak to Daniel Hackett, he is of the Hackett Associates. He puts out the Global Port Tracker with the National Retail Federation each month. I have a call with him every few weeks to try to keep in touch with what they're doing. And every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yep, we're increasing our forecast next month. It's already at a record high, but we're increasing it again." It's just the demand from the consumers and also the inventory, the low inventory levels, trying to replenish. This is what I've been talking to Anthony about. Is that we have been talking about when this reversion back to services spending will be, because we've just had this elevated goods spending for the past year. But the longer and longer this goes on, the more and more I think that it's going to be so gradual that we're going to get tired of talking about it.
Yeah.
That people we have the savings rate is high enough that consumers are flush with cash enough. People have so much pent up demand from not buying any clothes or not buying anything over the past year that I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
There's just freight volumes pumping.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, well, that's good news for Taimen then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So Chris, for sure, I have to congratulate you, of course, on the successful 2020. Not everyone made it. Some people grew, and I think that's where we see a lot of successful companies really kind of show their strengths of,
Absolutely.
you know, thriving throughout a pandemic or times of crises. You just mentioned you're very heavily involved in quite a few areas and really thriving in all of those segments. Where do you see Taimen fitting in the future?
Well, you know, if you had, and I'm sure you do, you have shippers up here all the time, right? Our customer base. And if you ask anybody in business, one of the most popular questions, maybe the most popular question, is probably, what makes you different? And so what makes Taimen different than an ordinary transportation company is we recognize that your situation is totally unique. Every shipper is unique. You have your own goals, you have your own obstacles that are completely unique, not just to your industry, but to you. And so we're really passionate about providing those unique solutions that add the most value long term. And instead of having thousands of customers coming to you, Anthony, and saying, hey, what would add the most value for you? And let's work towards that and then constantly improve upon it over the years to come.
Yeah, it seems, I've heard this from a few people during the pandemic. The ones that succeeded, at least, it was they stopped thinking about how can I get my stuff moved or how can I get my trucks filled. It's how can we think about our supply chain in a more collaborative way. And I think you guys have done that. So thank you so much
Thank you.
For your time today. Thanks for popping in.